Oh, hold on. It's saying we live now. I guess we just gonna go live, man. Forget it, man. We'll just go live.
Oh,
We
okay then.
live. It's seed talk stuff to make your seeds walk. It's just me and it's well, I should say it's Precious and I. Today I'm gonna start doing these one-on-one seed talks, and I'm gonna start also doing these um these solo seed talks with just me, and then we gonna bring the whole panel back too. So if you want to be on seed talk, let me know, and then we can get you on here. Of course, I'm always gonna be soliciting. You know what I'm saying? For donations and whatnot. If you want to donate to our time, I'll have Precious put her Cash App in there or her Venmo or whatever if she dares to do this. But always donate to our time and whatnot. So you can, donate to, Logic God Man, on Cash App and then also on Venmo. But we want to get into this topic today on Seed Talk, and we've been talking offline about, saying being in relationships with people with trauma and trauma bonding that happens. And how do you navigate that? And one of the things that I think is really interesting about this topic is I think a lot of people are scared to say that they don't want to be in a relationship with trauma because it seems like you're being exclusionary towards a person with a mental illness or something. You know what I'm saying? Or
Hmm.
it becomes a mental health issue. And I think that we put up with a lot of stuff in situations because we don't want to give up on that person first and foremost. But also, I think we don't want to be, a walking, talking contradiction. We don't want to be a hypocrite, saying that we don't want to be with a person with trauma, knowing dang well we're impacted by our own trauma. So I just want to, talk a little bit about, trauma bonding. And I just want to ask, you know, what kind of trauma, if you care to share, what kind of trauma do you bring to relationship, and how's that play a role in dating? Because we know we both, what I'm saying, we both single. I was married for 12 years. And ironically, I have some trauma from being married. And we gonna get into that because Precious made a good point. She said, is it trauma or just something petty you ain't got over with? You know what I'm saying? That you haven't got over. And I don't know, that might rub some people the wrong way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it would be because I think we all like to view ourselves as victims in a lot of stuff, and perhaps we may very well be. But you need to figure out, is it really the trauma, like if it really, really bruised you in terms of the way you approach relationships is so tormented that you can't make a good decision about the person, or is it because you're being petty about something that really had no, that something petty that you really had no control over, like. And now, really, I'm not trying to seem like I'm perfect, but I don't know what my traumas are.
Hmm.
Like, I really don't know if I have a trauma in terms of relationships. Like, I have relationships in the past, but I don't personally look at myself as a victim. I look at those relationships as lessons learned.
Hmm.
And I think some people internalize it and they become a victim, or some people internalize and become a victor in their pursuits. So what I mean by some people may look at it as petty, like if you're still mad about let's say a boy's, like there's some men I have personally encountered who's still mad about a girl in junior high school that did them wrong. I'm sorry, that is petty.
Well,
You need
don't
to
it,
get over
doesn't it
it.
doesn't it depend on what it was? Like,
Sure, yeah, it could
how did they
be.
do them wrong? Because I've known black women. Let me give you a perfect example. I think you know
Okay.
where I'm going with this. I know black women who are traumatized by men who have done them wrong because they were too dark skinned.
That's something different. That's colorism.
Hmm.
Colorism is a whole beast in itself, because it's not just, because the thing about colorism, that's not an isolated incident. It happens even when you're not in a relationship. It happens at your job. We see it in TV. We see it everywhere we go. That's a whole different sort of things. But somebody teasing you, or this girl didn't give you no play because she was interested in another guy, and you internalize that. I find those things to be petty, and vice versa. Like, you know what? Not sitting here thinking about it. Like, because I saw some couple TikTok videos. There was a guy in high school I thought was so fine, and last I checked, he still is fine. But the point is, he didn't want to date me, and I guess I wasn't his type. And I was felt some kind of way about that too. But now at 33, I have no reason to be mad at that. I wasn't his type. I wasn't his type. That don't mean there was something wrong with him or if there's something wrong with me. Because the thing is, after this guy didn't I guess rejected me, I guess you could say. And rejection, that's another thing we need to talk about, rejection. I think some people traumatized by rejection.
Did he shame you?
He did
Did
not shame me.
Okay, so
He
his rejection didn't include shame. I think that's one of the things that
okay.
really qualifies for trauma. I think that's one of the action items for
Okay.
one of the criteria is that when you're rejected, you're actually shamed. But you know what? I can also say that I've been rejected when I'm younger and it's added to my trauma, and they didn't have to ever shame me, but I knew or I assumed what it was about. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. It's one thing if they say some little low down stuff, but it's also if it is we made up a narrative in our head of why they decline me. Like I can say he declined me because I was dark complexion. Cause the girl
Mhm.
that he liked it was a light skin, at least she was biracial. Pretty girl. She was a very pretty girl. I'm not mad. She was a very pretty girl. But I could go and say that. But my thing is, he didn't say that. I'm making an assumption that's why it was. You know, I don't know why he did or didn't.
Yeah,
But
I think that in itself, if it happens consistently, even when the person doesn't shame you, I think it's implicit. It's like an implicit bias, you know what I'm saying? If you
maybe,
consistently see the person that rejected you, he's consistently rejecting darker skinned women.
yeah, I'm not sure if he did it to other women. I don't. And
And
that,
he,
and that
well,
is, I don't know.
I know I'm giving you an example of stuff that I see every day in high school as an educator, as a principal, and you constantly see them dating people that are lighter than you and even white.
Hmm.
And that could be traumatizing that you're not good enough, you know?
Yeah, especially for black women. And to see, I'm gonna piss a lot of people off with this one, but yeah, for black women, especially us dark skinned women, we do tend to, especially we trying to date within our own. We unfortunately many of us do encounter black men who do prefer the lighter skinned women, or even white or non-black, and a lot of times I think the black women, we will internalize that to think there's something wrong with us, and we do, and I guess it could be a form of trauma, because when they say they do find somebody they do find acceptable, and that relationship is not pleasant, some black women may say this could be due to me being dark complexion, which could very well be the truth. But in that notion. I mean, now I sit here and think about, I remember seeing that a lot growing up as well. But what debunked that theory for me was when I finally got to college and I was attracting all kind of men from all across the board. So
Mhm.
it's kind of like, I guess it's how you perceive yourself at the end of the day. It's how you perceive yourself. Like I know this girl Dana I watch on TikTok made a very good brought up a good topic about men shooting their shot. Like if a woman gave you eye contact to to give you the sign that she wants to be approached by you, you should try taking the shot. But I saw a lot of men talk about, oh well, no, I'm not gonna shoot my shot. She gonna sit there and reject me. I ain't trying to do all that. I'm not trying to get
Right.
embarrassed. And it's just like, see, you're probably the quote unquote good guy who complain about the girl not giving you any play, and you get mad at the quote unquote Pookies or the Ray Rays going to snatch the girl that you wanted. See, the thing about those Pookie and Ray, they got the confidence. They don't care if they're gonna give it to you. They got the confidence and the guts to approach that girl.
Yeah, they're not afraid to traumatize people.
Yeah, and that's another thing. They're not afraid to traumatize people. So it's just like you as the good guy or the good girl like myself, you have to figure out what is it about them that they get in these women, even when they're not the best choice. And
See. Hold on, Precious. See, I don't think as a woman, as specifically as a black woman, I don't think you understand how hard it is to decipher. You know what I'm saying? That look. You said when they give you a look,
no,
you
no,
you
some people
can't
make a,
get
I
scared
told
to
them
shoot
that
the
doesn't
shot.
work for me. I say it's tricky for me because I'm
Man,
a
it's
person
so
of
tricky for
courtesy.
men.
Huh?
It's tricky for men.
It
Like,
is I understand that.
I don't know what the look is. I need to take a course in that. Is there a tutorial? And I ain't
Like so,
talking about just a
I was going
YouTube
by what the
channel.
women say. I was going by that's not how I personally operate. But I think when you give eye contact, just say hello. I ain't saying you need to say, "Hey, girl, I'm gonna get your number, girl." Let's holler. No, just say a simple hello. And I think a lot of men are scared to do that. Just say hello.
Yeah, because you never know how that's gonna turn out. Like, especially, especially, you know, depending on the situation. If they working out, man, leave that woman
True.
alone. Or if they at work, or if they at the grocery
Right.
store, you know what I'm saying? It's like
Right.
really is a good. It doesn't really seem like there's ever really a good time, to approach a woman. And a lot of times, black women specifically, um, they deal with so much nonsense and
We
so much
do.
silliness and just clumsy, gross men that if they walking like this, you know, for a reason, as a filter, like, man,
Now, yeah, if she's not giving you
don't
any
even
sort of,
step to me.
yeah, you need to go ahead and keep it moving. If she's not giving you that warmth to approach, and that should be with anybody, but I don't know. Again, it is tricky. It takes some practice to decipher that. But yeah, if she giving you no, not giving you that sort of, and I'm not getting like smiling whatever. But other than that, if they're not giving you, yeah, I wouldn't even approach. But sometimes I tell men, sometimes a simple hello would do. Like
Yeah,
I don't need no pickup line. I don't need no crazy pickup line. Just say hi, how you doing?
yeah.
I say hey, how are you? Especially here down here in the South. I don't know
But
how.
see,
Maybe up north is different.
yeah, yeah. I think it is a cultural thing. I think it is
It
a
could be a cultural
geographical
thing
thing.
though.
I think it's a cultural thing. Um,
Hmm.
but that goes back to our original topic for today. The trauma. A lot of these women, specifically black women, have dealt with so much trauma
Hmm.
that they got their guard up. They got their
Understandable.
guard up because they're dealing with so much nonsense out there with these men. And it's funny that you heard from black men that they didn't want to approach women like that because they didn't want to get rejected. That's a part of trauma too. And I read something that there was no, it wasn't. I read something. I saw something on TikTok. This is one sister on TikTok. I think you might have seen this too, where she went to a speed dating in person,
Hmm.
and she was like one of the few women there. I mean, one of the few. It was all women. Sorry, pardon
Uh
yourself.
huh.
Enough men there. I don't think there was any men there. And I'm like,
Correct.
dang. And the men were like looking at this, and they were like, nah, man, that makes us look desperate. And I'm like, I would love to have that opportunity. If I said, it's set up for you to win. You get
Exactly.
all the social cues right there.
Exactly.
You feel me? But that comes down to the trauma. Trauma will stop you. It can either be a breaker or an accelerator.
I got another perspective on that though, because I went to one before when I moved here to the city. I went to one before, only went once, and I had spent saying it was very little men there, mostly women. But
Mhm.
this is what I think what it is, and some people may take this the wrong way, but it's just a thought. I think the reason why men don't like to go to those sort of events because they can't control the narrative. They're not in control of the environment. See,
Hmm.
for some reason, it makes men feel uncomfortable to go to a place where women are openly and giving consent for you to approach them.
Man, that's terrible. That's sad, man.
It
And I,
is sad because like
I'm
it's
pretty
like
sure you're correct in your psychoanalysis. That's sad though.
yes, that's really what it is. I'm like, how you find that so crazy that you're going to a place where women are opening to be approached. These women want to talk to you. These women are open. And even if you say you talk to a woman and she's not interested, there's other women will be interested in talking to you. But I really think what it is, men cannot control the narrative. He can't use the excuse of, oh, women just didn't want to talk to me, whatever. Those women are there to be talked to.
Mhm.
They can't control the narrative. And I think it also goes down, and I hate to go this route, but I think men they feel pride in manipulating a woman to liking them. They
Damn.
like chasing after that woman to make this
Oh,
woman who
yeah, yeah.
probably originally didn't want him to make her
It takes the
like
fun
him.
out of it. It
Huh?
takes the fun out of it for a lot of men because,
Mm-hmm.
it's especially a lot of these, Kevin Samuelites in the age of alpha men, that one show, Fresh and Fit, that's another, like, that's a common theme, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Alpha man, and that might work for some men. That works for a lot of women. They like alpha men. But a part of being an alpha man, a part of being an alpha man has a lot to do with being a predator. It
it
really,
is.
and pursuing something and hunting something and the satisfaction. And it goes back to the Tupac saying. I like to pick out the little lyrics in hip hop songs. I remember in one of the songs he said, "I don't want it if it's that easy." I said, "Damn, Pac."
Yeah.
I said, "Dang."
I think I get around. I want to say it's
Yep.
get I get around song. I think he said that on. But
Yeah.
yes, and it's so funny. It's like how you find it easy when this woman wants to be with you. So that's why I say a lot of men they take pride in being a predator and making a woman who probably would have initially interested in them and making that woman like him, which I
Mhm.
find so odd because common sense should tell you you should date somebody who actually likes you and actually wanted to date you.
Right. Right.
But that's why those things. That's why those sort of things, unfortunately, are unsuccessful for most women because
Right.
a lot of men don't want to show up because, again, they like the chase. They like the chase. They don't want to be with a woman who knows what she wants. She know how she want to be approached. She already have her boundary standards already presented.
Mhm.
Yeah, it make some men may feel emasculated, but I find so strange. You're probably the same person complaining about this woman not wanting to talk to you, or you can't
Right.
get no play. But here you are, here's a playing field that's even now in control for everyone's safety, and you don't like to go. That's the only logic I can see. No pun intended.
Yeah, we've really spoiled a lot of men, specifically since I'm a black man and I grew up around black men, that's my circle. We've really given them a lot of unearned privilege.
Absolutely,
And I think and follow me here, seed talk. I think we plant the seed in men to be traumatized when we don't get that privilege. When it's taken away, it's called being spoiled. It's called being a brat. So, like, I asked you the question and I gave you a little bit time to think about it. And you say you don't think you bring any trauma to any relationship. Dang, precious.
I I never heard a man tell me you got some issues. I never heard a man tell me that. I'm just going by my own personal experiences.
Right.
But like I said, that's not to say my relationships were perfect. I'm just saying I learned my lessons from those. I took what went wrong, what signs I missed, or what I wasn't aware of beforehand, and I took it and I take it with me. Now, the last guy I was talking to, the one I had called you about. I guess he's doing okay. I haven't talked to him in months. I'm just keeping it real. I said, you know what, I just need to back up. But he had a lot of laughing. I had to back up. I was like, don't get me wrong, he's a nice guy. He's not a bad person. I just said, you know what, you got some things going on. I may have to take a step back and just let you. I'd rather sit back and watch and see what you rather do.
Right.
And he has showed some signs that looked very familiar. And he would say stuff, "Oh, I think that's just your filter." I said, "Yes, my filter of experience. I've seen this type of pattern behavior before." I said, "I'm not trying to be argumentative, although I can't go there, but that's not what I want to do. I'm telling you, this is something I don't approve of. That's not how I operate when it comes to these type of unions. What we have now,
Mm-hmm.
you can change it. You can do whatever you want to do with that. You could rather fix it or to say I'm gonna have to deal with it, and I would deal with it the way I need to deal with it, and I chose the way to deal with it by backing up. It's
Right.
just really that simple. But in terms of going into the bringing types of trauma, honestly, I could ask my ex if I drop raw anything. I don't think they'll say anything bad though.
Yeah. Do you think there's a such thing as good trauma?
I don't know what is a good trauma. What is that exactly? What would be a good example of a good trauma though?
I think trauma is anything that leaves an impression on you from your childhood specifically that you carry into your adulthood, and that influences and impact how you respond to other people. So I would say, and then I always make this example is that I experienced a lot of good trauma. You know, I'm a poet, so I always look at things a different way. And I think like looking at my parents and other adults in my household, I have expectations based on how they treated me. And I see that as
Mm.
trauma. You know, that
And that notion, I would say I
baggage,
have good. I
luggage,
would
and not
say
all the baggage and luggage is negative. Not all the baggage and luggage is toxic.
true. And you know what? You know what? As you put it like that, you could very well be right because I have told this one guy tried to talk to me, and yeah, I'm probably gonna get side out for this, but you can look at it however you want. But I said, look here, but I guess in a certain sense, I am a spoiled person. I never had to reach my purse to pay for anything, even
Mm,
with my past relationship. I've been treated cool for the compared to what I've heard from a lot of black women's experiences with black men. That I, especially in the private group that I'm in, of all the stories I've heard, I must say I must be an extremely lucky black woman to never have to go through a lot of that. I'm extremely very lucky. Even with the my first relationship that lasts almost 6 years, even with him, although that was a mix of good and bad times, it my stuff was very, very minimal compared to what a lot of women have to go through. But to be fair, we was extremely young in that age. To be fair, we were young, but even then, like some women had some talk about they had to pay for everything. They be broke, and the man don't want to help them out. They be financially struggling. I said, you know what, my mate at the time, while we may have been in college age or whatever, I never had to reach in my pocket with him. He paid for everything. I never
right.
had to pay for anything. So when his new guy asked me, can I go half on the date? I said, I will never do no such thing. I never had to pay with any of them, even with my family. Like when we go out, I never have to reach in my purse. They always took care of me. I've
Hmm.
been very, I guess, because being the only girl with older brothers, and I did grow up, my dad, who still quite financially take care of me if I do need money. Even at 33 years old, my dad would still send me money if he had it. So it's like, I guess that is a good trauma. And some people tell, oh man, you just be looking for men with money. Well, you damn straight I am, because
Right.
that's what I grew up on. That's how I was cared for. So yeah, so those type of attributes I am looking for in my partners. So, but for a lot of black men, they tend to associate that with gold digging. But my question is this: I will only be a gold digger if that was my sole purpose of dating a man with money. It's just to have money. That's not the only purpose. There's more layers to it. But again, I think this goes back to being black men being spoiled. They got women when they didn't have any money. There were women who were still giving them shots and taking care of them when they didn't wasn't financially well off. So I
Hmm.
think when they come across black women who have standards like mine, or even like in Ebony K. Williams, that a lot of y'all jumped down her throat. But me personally, I think y'all took what she said at face value. I knew exactly what she was saying because I have the same mentality. That's not to say there's something wrong with dating a particular bus driver or whatever, especially considering her mother was one. Well, I had to read up on her when she said it. But the point is, you want somebody who have the same value system as you.
Hmm.
But in terms of trauma, trauma could be for the man. It could be a form of trauma because they didn't have enough money to get some girl that he wanted. The girl went to with the man who had the money. So I understand those notions. I understand those notions, but I also kind of wonder if having money gets you the type of woman of your dreams. Why don't you get the money?
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Let's just take the T word out then, and let's just replace it because I think that part of your homework before you get into any kind of relationship, whether it's um romantic, platonic, sexual, business, whatever, is diagnosing your trauma. That should be your homework prior to getting to any relationship, because I would hate to be in a relationship and someone tell me about myself before I did. That was,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? I feel like that would be giving them way too much power. So if we don't use the word trauma, I'll go first. Then what do you bring? What kind of baggage do you bring, into a relationship? And I think I bring that trauma or that baggage of, you know, the fear of being rejected, of course. You know what I'm saying? And also
Mhm.
wanting to be accepted. And I'm working on that. Even in my older age, just being like, you can't please everyone.
That's true.
And a lot of times in relationships, what we do, the first thing we want to do is try to please somebody, man. And then we'll compromise our standards, we'll compromise our um our value system just so someone won't be mad at us.
Yes. And that was the problem with the last guy I was talking to. He had very, he was very sensitive. He wasn't a bad man. He's not a bad man at all. But he did have that people pleasing sort of mentality due to whatever he had dealt with. Now, granted, I don't know if he was really dealing with trauma or he was being a sneaky dude, because I talked to my other friends about him and they had different stories. So I call this man a shapeshifter. That's my mentality. That he's a shapeshifter. I'm
What,
not
what, are
saying
you,
he's a bad
what
man.
are you
He's just a
referring to?
shapeshifter. Huh?
What are you referring to? What is it that you couldn't tell if it was trauma or he was just
Because the way he approached, like the way that, like, how you put it, the way that he was with my coworker was a complete, sound like a almost a completely different person than how he was with me. Like a totally different person. Like, I've learned to find out he wasn't being honest with me with certain things,
okay?
although I addressed him on it. But I guess, like, why did you lie about something so frivolous?
Hmm.
And I'm thinking now he probably didn't want to do it because he felt like I wasn't going to approve of him. That's the
Hmm.
only thing I could think of, because everything else he seemed like he was up, based on what they told, what I've heard or whatever. He seemed like he was up front. I said, but why? You was such a totally, sound like a totally different person with these other two women. You seem like a totally different person in a sense, not in a bad way. Like, oh, I think you know, not what that's. That's very interesting how you're changing up for depending on the peer person you're dealing with. Because I learned to find out he really was a smoker. I took him, maybe because I said I'm not into smokers. But the funny thing about it, I will always smell smoke on him.
Smoking like cigarettes or weed or both?
It's both. I learned it was
Oh,
both. And I was like, because my dad smoked and I'm not a smoker. That's probably explain why I don't, that's probably a good trauma. I don't like to date people who smokes. But I find it so interesting. Do you know, I asked this man the entire time, are you a smoker? He always say his mom smoked, which could very well be true. But I didn't ask who would smoke. I said, if you smoke, as you specifically, if you smoke. And I got to find out you want to be, he would be honest with me. I said, why did you lie about something so frivolous? And now sitting here thinking about it, I think because he wanted to impress or want me to
right.
approve of him at the time.
Yeah.
But it's no, it's not anything. It's just very interesting. I say, well, you would have been honest with me about that small thing. I wonder what else you would have been too honest with me about.
And it sounds like it sounds like you were triggered. He triggered you. You know what I'm saying? You were triggered by the smell of the smoke, and was like you had all the memories and experiences that you had with your father.
Maybe so. Are you a smoker?
However, that turned out, and whatever that means. You know what I'm saying? I know that happens a lot with people with drinking. You know, you could trigger
Maybe.
someone if you have a couple drinks, and then they might come from a family with an alcoholic. You know what I'm saying? Family member, and that just turns them all the way off.
Yeah, it does, because it's like, you know what, these type of situations normally doesn't turn out well. So some people want to remove themselves from the situation before it happens. Like, I think that's what's one. Now sitting here thinking about it, um, that's kind of one of the reasons. Another reason why I left my first ex. I think that's one of the reasons why I left, because he would have smoking before, but the one time I had kissed, I'm like, you've been smoking, and I
Hmm.
started to realize he started to delve into it. And the more he delved into it, the more he started to stir off. Because, and here's another thing, you know what? Maybe I do have a trigger. Because I don't know. Maybe it's one I started to realize. is that I tend to be with. I kind of attracted a couple men who may have been a little low key jealous, just a little jealous. Now I had to sit and think
I mean,
about
jealous
it.
of other men
No, jealous of me
of like what? What are they jealous of?
because especially especially after high school, I had to sit and think about it because I remember now, like Rich said, I remember my ex used to say some little snipe, some little remark, not necessarily in a try to be shady, but I remember her saying because I had showed him a house I grew up in because I lived in Clean all my life before I moved to Austin. And I remember we had some time to kill because the house he was roommating with his friend was very nearby my old childhood home. And we rode past and said, you said, that used to be my house. It looks different than what it used to look 15 years ago, but that's where my house I grew up in. He like said, you're real lucky you have a house that you could go back to. I don't have nothing like that because we was in the military, we all over the place. So I don't have that sort of bond or memories like that. I said, oh. I said, oh, okay. And I also learned, see, here's another thing. See
To
now,
me, I think that might have been he might have been being a little passive aggressive, and he didn't know how to navigate it because he might have been a little bit emotionally immature. But
yeah, it
he
could
was
very well.
but he was lobbing you an opportunity to say, "Well, tell me more about that."
And
Talk.
I asked him, I was asking him about his life, and he was very secretive. Maybe because he was a fucking Scorpio, why his ass was so damn so. That nigga was. He still pops up every now and then, but he was a very secretive. That dude was secretive. He was never upfront. He was passive. That's one thing. I'm sorry, fellas. A lot of y'all are extremely passive. You're not really straightforward with a lot of stuff, and then get mad. So, well, I never told you. Well, you were so passive about it. But
Right.
yeah, he said that you have a good family. And even the last guy I talked to, you have a very, very close relationship with your parents. Like I've never seen anyone who is that extremely close to their parents as you are. Even my friend said you are extremely close with your parents. Like you talk to them every day, you tell them everything. He's like, I don't do all that with my parents. I'm like, well, why not? I mean, we ain't tight with my parents like that. I'm like, well, they're your parents. I mean, did something happen? He's like, nah, not really. I just don't fuck with them like that. I'm like, oh,
Mm,
okay.
dang.
I said, well, I don't know how this going to work because I love my parents. I mean, my dad is definitely not perfect. He definitely got flaws, but for the most part, I do have a good relationship with him and along with my siblings. But a lot of people, yeah, I think when it comes to family bonding, yeah, especially a lot of them that the guys I dated, well, at least the guy that did that, a lot of them didn't grow up with their father or they grew up with a stepfather, like
Yeah,
my first.
that's me.
Hmm.
That's traumatizing in itself. I mean,
Yeah,
me not growing
yeah,
up with my own father, that's traumatizing. I'm just fortunate that I have my stepfather, say my
yeah,
father, I should say, because he came through in the clutch, Um,
yeah, and it's so funny. My first ex, he was raised by his stepfather, but him and his stepfather did not get along.
hmm.
Like it was a very, very
Oh,
like
you said raised. I thought you said he was raped. I was like,
no,
Jesus.
oh no, no,
Oh,
no.
okay.
I don't know. I don't know what with him. I don't know about with my ex because he has some secrets logic. I don't know what he could have done. I don't know
Right.
what he could have done, but I'm gonna leave it as it is. But no, he was raised by his stepfather, but him and his stepfather did not get along. They did not have a good relationship. Like, like there was one time he asked me this when we already have broken up. We already been broken up now at this point, probably 3 years. And
Hmm.
I know he had hit me up because I was coming home. Because this one I used to work the night shift for the government on a contracting job. He had asked me if I could pick him up to take him to his house, his
Uh-huh.
parents' house. Because he moved back in with his parents. I guess he was all over the place. Last I checked, he still was all over the place. But the point is, I picked him up, and the stepdad called him saying, "Pretty much where you at? You don't be working this late. Why are you coming home so late? You need to be in the house." Me and mind you, we in our late 20s at this point. And, I'm overhearing. He like, look, I was waiting for Precious to come home. She works in Austin at nighttime. She just come and take me home. He like, ain't no VA open at this time of night. I think she lying. Who that woman you with? And I'm just like, I'm looking at the phone. I said, you better tell your bald head ass stepdaddy that he better go back to bed.
Why he gotta be bald? Because
Cause
he
he
was
is bald.
okay.
I saw pictures of him. Don't tell me
Why'd
how I
you
know the
why'd
picture.
you why'd you weaponize his bald head like that?
Because I'm pretty sure you probably says you don't talk about my job. Say ain't nobody working at the VA 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, we processing medical claims for the veterans. We work all throughout the night to make sure veterans get them the medical needs that they needed. That shit
Right.
go on all throughout the night. Yeah, we are working this. But the point is, I think now looking back, I think he was jealous of my family dynamics. And I think he was also jealous of how I prosper in my life because the thing about him, he came from a family of means. Like they not his parents were not only retired military, they were ministers that ran a church in our city, like a really big church. So he came from a very, I guess, what people would say on paper, a well-to-do background. I didn't come from that kind of background. My parents from backwoods of Georgia. They were like country folks, and they didn't have like no prestigious jobs or careers. They were very like country people. So I think it was kind of one of them things. My mom still think he felt that he was better than me. That's what
Mm.
my mom felt and said. I think he thought he was better than you until you start doing better for yourself and you went and excelled and he didn't. He probably
Yeah.
started feeling a little crunchy. And looking back on it, she probably was right.
Well, let
Not
me
not
ask you something real quick, because
go for it.
I wanted to wrap up and I wanted to move into the plan of action, but I wanted to ask you real quick:
Hmm.
do you think that you are responsible for unintentionally triggering or traumatizing someone? Like, if you just, like, for instance, you gave me a situation, like, for instance, the situation you just now gave me, where the stepfather was trying to mentor his stepson, who you were in a relationship with, and he was like, she ain't really working that late. You know what I'm saying? Who she was? She probably dealing with some other dude. You know what I'm saying? That sounds like that comes from trauma, either directly or indirectly, some trauma that he had. Or or if dudes keep passing you up for lighter skinned women and they unintentionally trigger or traumatize you, in both those situations, when someone unintentionally traumatizes you or triggers you, are they responsible, or how responsible are they?
They're not responsible if they wasn't intentionally doing it. No, and I'm pretty sure I probably did unintentionally trigger some of my mates. I could probably say that I probably did. It's not anything of intentions or something that I planned out or sought out to do. Sometimes who I am, it's just who I am, and yeah, it could be. You know what? I just thought of a situation. I remember something now. I just remember a situation, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that you can intentionally trigger or traumatize somebody. And again, you could address that person about it. But at that time, that incident happened, me and him were no longer together. We were the boyfriend and girlfriend. I haven't saw and spoke to him in so long. We kind of like reconnected, but I didn't get back in a relationship with him because I had no desire to go back to it. But
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think that, because they always talk about intent and impact.
mm,
So no matter what the intention was, how did you impact someone? And I think if you had no intention and you trigger someone and you traumatize someone, but the impact was just that, like hurt, then you are responsible to figure out what you can do to make it right. And and I think you are also responsible for doing what you can do when you're in the presence of that person so it won't happen again, or just limit it as much as possible, or just don't be around them. And I see that a lot with, like, for instance, like I gave you the example earlier, drinking. Like, you could see, like, there's a lot of couples out there that one person drinks and another person doesn't. And the reason why the person that doesn't drink is because they are alcoholics and they went to AA, or they went through some kind of
mm-hmm.
program where they have abstained, um, you know, um, from alcohol.
Sobriety,
And
sobriety,
yeah, they've taken a commitment to sobriety. You having a drink around them could be traumatizing, could be
correct.
triggering. Asking them to go to functions where the theme is alcohol and drinking, being
Mm-hmm.
around them drunk, the smell of it.
Yes.
So it's like, we can say, it wasn't my intent to trigger you, or to,
Right.
pull the
But
scab
the que-
back.
but the question would be, was the person aware of that person's trigger or traumatization prior to that happening though?
Hmm.
That would be the key. What did that person do prior to that exposure? Because if that wasn't addressed or brought up in a conversation prior, that person probably didn't have no idea.
Yeah, it's important that you said that, because that puts the responsibility on the person who's being triggered and traumatized too. So
Correct.
not only is it the responsibility of a person um, that unintentionally triggers or traumatizes someone, it's also the responsibility for the other person to say, these are my traumas. These are my triggers. You know what I'm saying? That's why I said in the beginning, it's like diagnosing your trauma and your triggers should be your homework prior to getting into any kind of relationship.
I totally agree. And then you know what, Logic, before we get off and do a point of action, that just
Mhm,
brings up a situation with my first date. I see that's my most of my spend is with him because I was with him for so long. I
mhm,
remember he brought me to one of his friends' house who lived on the third floor. I think it was the second or third floor because they lived like in a five, I think it was 3, 4 apartment complex. And I just came off of work good. So I was still in my work uniform. I was dressed really nice. I had a little pristine look as I usually do when I step out the house. And they invited me in, and my ex introduced me to the guy and his girlfriend. They were kind of laid back and all. I said, "Hi, hi." I'm striking the conversation. Well, he was talking to the boy, I was talking to the girl. She seemed like she
mhm.
wasn't really too interested in talking to me, but I still tried to conversation, come in her home, and I just think out of courtesy to speak to people, especially when you're in their house. And I know he offered me a drink, and they offered me some stuff that I know I don't want to drink because I drove. And
Mhm.
I say, and I told him, I'm sorry, I don't drink the cheap stuff because the cheap stuff get you fucked up.
The expensive stuff too, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yep. Mhm.
Yeah, but they took it to where I was being like I was too snooty, or I was too snooty, that's how I learned what the word bougie was. I never knew what bougie was till he called me that.
Mhm.
And everybody got quiet. I said I wouldn't try to be mean. I just that I can't drink that. I don't need to be drinking that stuff, especially when I got to drive home.
Right.
So they ended up getting something that was very good what they made for me. But him and the guy, it was so quiet. Those two guys kind of left him. My ex and his friend kind of left, and the girl kind of really didn't want to talk to me after that. I'm like, okay, remember, just like I was 22, 23 years old at the time.
Mhm.
So we were watching some movie or whatever, and the guys came back in, and my ex, okay, P, let's go. It's all right. And he was like, Precious, you don't need to be coming up here acting all bougie all the time. And I'm like, what that mean?
Mhm.
He like, you act like you too good to sit up in there with us. I said, if I felt like I was too good, Will, I said his name. If I felt like I was too good,
And there
I
it
would
goes.
have
You
left.
about to get sued. You about to get sued for slander.
Well, he know what I'm talking about. He be all right. He know what I'm talking about. I said, why you think I was being bougie? Well, you told me you don't want to drink the cheap shit. I said, what I don't. I had to drive. Okay, I had to drive home. I can't be tipsy. I can't be under the influence. I work for the state. I can't be getting drunk. So I have to. I'm watching out for me. I'm being responsible for me. Cause you were gonna drive me home. So I'm being responsible for me.
Is
So
that a
well,
part
I
of
don't.
your
Yeah,
trauma? Hold on. Is that
huh?
part of your trauma? Like, have you been tipsy before? Or
No, I haven't. But I'm thinking I probably traumatized his friends. That's why
gotcha.
I may have traumatized them. Maybe they seen a chick like me and have they assumption, or seen a chick like me and have their assumptions. But I was like, he like, well, that's probably what they thought about it. I said, look here, what they think of me is none of my business. I go and operate what I do. If they took it that way, I apologize. That wasn't about them. It was about me. I'm watching out for me.
Right.
So I don't know how they probably still didn't like me after that, but shit, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did. I did what was best for me.
No, I hear you. I hear you. You a little what they say, what the young folks say, you a little spicy tonight. I mean, you done dropped a couple N bombs, you done dropped some F bombs. I like this. I like this. This is, you take Carmelita and Bobby and Trisha and the rest of the people out of the mix, and Precious done let her hair down. See, we on to something.
Yeah, but other than that, I mean, for overall, I don't think I brought my own personal, but I may have unintentionally triggered some other people in a relationship. I could probably admit to that. I could
Yeah.
probably admit to that. But in terms of my own drama, I don't know if I brought any drama to my relationship because I'm such a laid back person. Like there's are men who like to argue. I'm not an argumentative person. Like, I don't
Yeah.
mind debates, but we need to get to a point in the next 10 minutes.
Yeah,
We need to get.
I've noticed that about you, like just all the time that I've known you, just in the private, chat rooms and just discussing offline. That's what I appreciate about you. You consider different points and different viewpoints, and you have an open mind. So I can always tell that it is not Precious's goal and intent. It's not a part of her value system just to be arguing with people.
Yeah, I just don't have time for that. Like I don't mind a good debate.
But
I don't
that
mind.
might be a trigger for you, though. That might be a trigger. People trying to
Mm.
argue with you. You might have grew up in a household where people didn't really argue.
Oh no, we definitely argue.
Mhm.
Maybe that's why. Maybe I'm argued out. Maybe
See,
I'm argued.
maybe that's a trigger though. That's the
Maybe it
reason why
is.
you don't
I'm argued
argue is
out.
because you grew up with so much arguing that as soon as you see, man, I ain't even got time for
I'm
that.
not
See,
gonna
I grew up
entertain
in a
it. Like,
household where there was disagreements, but there wasn't a lot of arguing. You know what I'm saying?
right.
People were trying to be understood, like they talked things out. There wasn't people putting their hands on each other. You know what I'm saying? And I know some black folks who are a little bit embarrassed or they kind of wear it as a badge when they paid those trauma dues. Like, why is it a badge of honor that you grew up in a household that was plagued with domestic violence? You're not no better than anyone else.
Absolutely. Oh no, 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 no.
You know what I'm saying? You grew up watching that stuff, and those are the people that usually, add that to the list of things that makes another black person bougie or bougie, like they called you. Remember, you know what I'm saying? Oh, your
I'm caught.
you grew up, so you don't like to argue. So, oh, you bougie. No, no, it's called being civilized.
It
Or
is
or we don't even have to put a title on it. This is just me. This is how I grew up. If you want that, there are millions, literally millions of people
millions.
who love to argue with you. I can give you
Yes.
I can call a couple up right now on my phone. They
I
love
I
to
totally
argue.
agree with
They
you.
love to be right. And that's not how
Yes.
I was raised. So it is a trigger for me. When soon as someone tries to argue and always trying to win arguments, there is a tendency for me to try to, like, boom, lash back and try to win the argument. But I've been through that in high school and college.
Hmm.
I won a lot of arguments, but that doesn't necessarily equate to understanding.
Like yeah, I'm not a fan of contrarians who just want to argue just for the hell of arguing. No, I'm
Exactly.
not. I don't have time. Like you, me, and like me, and my brother got in not in let's say an argument. We got into a debate because we were talking about single mothers, and we got into that. But that's a different topic for another. That's a long conversation. But the point
Yeah.
is, we didn't get in an argument, call each other names and stuff. But we just had a discussion about something. But yeah, some people who like to like start stuff or be the contrarian or just want to be controversial just for likes or attention. Absolutely not. I'm not going to entertain you in the least because I already know what you're about to do with this.
Right. So, what you think the plan of action is? I'll go first. I
Okay,
mentioned it before. I feel like the plan of action is when you, and we're gonna have to do a part two on this, by the way,
you
because
definitely will.
you know what I started thinking about midstream. I started thinking about Darren Jackson. What's his name? Derek Jackson and his
Jackson,
wife. I forget the sister's name. What's the sister's name again?
Denia, Deaja. I don't know how to
Naya,
say her name.
Naya.
Deaja,
It's something
Deaja.
with Naya. But that is a perfect an example of a relationship that was based on trauma bonding. And when you listen to her interview, it makes sense that she was attracted to him. It makes sense that she's doing what she's doing after their divorce or their divorce in preparation. I don't know if they're legally divorced yet, but she's trying to be like a relationship guru now and kind of like be a mentor or woman mentor and life coach to women of like how to deal with infidelity because she dealt with a man like Derek Jackson who was such a cheater, But I would say the plan of action is, like I said before, is diagnose what your trauma and triggers are. And just be conscious of it that before someone else pulls that trigger or you start to pull that trigger, that you back out before anyone gets hurt, including yourself. And then when you feel that the space is safe and is sacred, to share with people, like we talked about, like that's how you help people be responsible and help people help you is when you say, hey man, I really don't like you did it. You talked about that. That was a great example. Hey man, I'm not really into smoking. They'd be like, why? Well, screw up with my dad smoking. You might have had someone who died of um of um of cancer, or or whatever. But I
Right.
just remember growing up, and it really didn't dawn on me until I got older. I didn't realize that my grandfather was an alcoholic until I got older. And the reason why I realized that is because he would kiss me on my nose and it had a very distinct smell. As I got older, I realized that it was alcohol. And then when he got older and he died of liver disease and
Mm.
liver cancer, and then my mom started talking like, man, this alcoholism, it runs in the family, especially with our men. You know, you should stay away from it. This, that, and the third. Look at your grandfather on both sides. Look at your father. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, damn,
And
that's
you
why. And I remember growing up, it was definitely a trigger in high school and in college. That's why I never drank in high school and college. It was definitely a trigger when people would get drunk. I'd be like, ah, man,
and
let
you know what? That
mm,
makes me wonder. That maybe that see that right there kind of makes me bring up, can behaviors be genetic?
oh yeah,
Because you said it runs in the family. I said, can certain behavior be genetic, like alcoholism or drugs
mm,
or gambling or very uncontrollable sexual drive, that type. I be wondering if this, because I don't like to fall into that trap of believing things can be inherited through genetics, because that's what racism tend to do sometimes when it comes to black people. So that's why I don't like to go down that slope. But more and more I hear about those type of things running in black families, it kind of makes me wonder, maybe is it genetic or is it because our environment that we raised in
it's
that
both.
didn't get, yeah, could very well be with
Your
both.
environment can trigger something that's been passed on to you genetically. It's called epigenetics.
Mm,
Epigenetics, that we actually can inherit the stress from our ancestors and our forefathers. We inherit the stress. That's why it's so important to get your mental health and your mental wellness right, because
mm,
you can pass it on. Like a perfect example is clinical depression. That's
mm.
why a lot of black folks need to stay away from certain things that can trigger that and bring it out.
Right.
Alcohol, certain drugs, certain situations, certain
Yeah.
people,
Yeah, and
certain
I stay
food.
away from drugs, not necessarily because of my father, because I see what drugs do to people, even
Mhm.
outside of it. Like it messes with your teeth, it makes you look older, it messes with
Yeah,
your health long term,
yeah,
especially if you're dealing with street drugs. We already see what the government do to black people when they deal with that type of substance. I don't want to fall into that trap. So I avoid those things.
yeah,
But I think everybody don't I understand everybody don't think like that. But those are my reasons why I don't fool with drugs at all. So
yeah,
it's wild when people ask me, do I smoke or have I said I've never smoked a day in my life, and they be like, what? I know I don't. I
yeah.
barely drink.
I've never smoked either. I've
I
smoked a
barely
cigar,
drink.
and that's different than marijuana. Mhm.
Right.
Might be worse, but but they say you ain't supposed to inhale it. Well, I can count on two hands the times that I've smoked a cigar. You know what I'm saying? Just to to be social and whatnot. But what do you think the plan of action is if you were to, your takeaway and what you would share and with the audience out there?
Well, what you said is very dead on to what people need to do as a general census. But I also want to go back to what I said in the beginning. Determine, is this a trauma or this is something petty you haven't gotten over? Determine what it really is. It a trauma? Can you heal this trauma on your own? Like if this is type of thing that you say, you know what, it was fucked up when this happened, but you know what, I'm at a better headspace that I'm going not going to allow this to control me any longer. Like you need to go through each little, even if it's something small. Go through that. Say, is this whether it's something wrong with you that you did it, or what is something wrong with that person and that person projected that on you? Like you need to just go through to get a comb and comb through all them knots to see is it really you, or is it just the other person who are going through their own stuff and they didn't realize it.
Hmm.
Like I kind of talked to my coworker like a few months ago. I said, I've been reflecting on a lot of stuff, especially when it comes to like a lot of trauma. I said, you know what, I'm starting to realize maybe it wasn't me after all, maybe it was them. Maybe it wasn't really me after all. Maybe I'm thinking I was the problem. Maybe it wasn't me at all. It was just them who are going through their own trauma or their own thing they're going on, and I just have to be caught up in the mix of it. I just have to get caught up in the middle of it. Like, there was this man who was talking about how I'm trying to get off the topic, but I'm just going trying to give an example. And I was like, he was talking about how he would cheat on his wife with another woman routinely because the woman that he was cheating on her with had a high sex drive. She do a lot of strange stuff in the bedroom. She would go to that level. He said my wife is too boring. She don't really please me the way the other women do.
Yeah, you hear
And it
that.
kind of and it kind
Mhm.
of dawned on me. I'm like, she's not freaky enough. She's not spontaneous enough. And I said, is it because your wife is not freaky enough, or is it because you sexually traumatized and you want to relive that through another woman?
Damn, damn, that's deep. That's a good point. I never looked at it like that. That's dope, Precious.
I had to
That's,
sit and think about it.
that's
I'm like,
really
wait a
dope.
minute.
Hmm.
Because a lot of stuff that he was explaining, I was like, a lot of stuff you're describing of how this sex is with this woman, this is not normal sexual activity. This is more on the extreme. And the fact that you got so extreme with this made me think someone did this to you very young. Because this is not normal behavior. I don't care if you're male or female. That's not normal sexual behavior.
Or it might not have even been anything that was done to him sexually, but that's the experience where he feels like he's in control. So they say a lot of times when young people, children aren't in control, they'll do things to get control back. And sex is one of them. You know what another thing is?
What's that?
Playing with fire. They say the majority of arsonists and people who play with fire, you know what I'm saying, want control. And that might come from, being, abused and being a survivor of sexual abuse,
And I've
but
noticed that.
but also lying too. Habitual liars. They say that is from a childhood growing up not having enough control. I can speak to that. I used to be a habitual liar. I think I stopped when I was like, I must have been like 14 years old. I just woke up one day and said, man, this is for the birds, man. I ain't doing this no more.
Yet I could actually, you're probably telling the truth. Now, I'm thinking of someone right now who got them same traits right now. But yeah, as it's like sometimes people got their own trauma that they're dealing with. If you're thinking there's something wrong with you, it may not be necessarily wrong with you. It's that that person got that trauma and it's your first time seeing something like it, and you don't know how to process that or how to maneuver that with somebody. And that's what I started to realize, especially when I reflect on my friends who were very highly promiscuous. A lot of them eventually came out and told me how many of them sexually abused and or they were raped or molested. It's so many people that came out and revealed it. Probably in the last past year, they came out and revealed that. And I say I figured that would happen to them for them to be in that sort of nature. But
Yeah,
I know,
a lot of adult film stars
hmm
have, a sexual abuse past. They,
yeah.
hmm
That's
yeah,
why that's why I say before you try to judge this person for not being sexually desirable to you in the bedroom, make sure it's not one of your traumas or one of your triggers that you may think this person's being born, but this person's actually normal. This person is actually operating in like, the basic average sex, and the average sex. And you're trying to relive that traumatic experience through that person, and you feel this person's not doing the job for you.
yeah. I get.
So yeah, so that's my plan of action is comb through the traumas, determine which one you can heal and which one you cannot heal.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. I'm gonna start something. Not only we gonna have a plan of action as we move forward, we're gonna have some homework. So your homework is to write down or and talk about or share. In a trusted, safe place. You might just share it with your diary or your journal. Write down what are your traumas and what are your triggers and what are a list of triggers and traumas you need to be aware of when you're in a relationship with someone. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
and a very simple way you can do that when you're in a relationship is asking a very, very, very simple question before you do something that might traumatize someone. Hey man, you mind if I smoke around you? Are you cool? Does that bother you? Oh yeah, I really don't like that, man. Could you not? Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Or you mind if I drink? Does that bother you? You know what I'm saying? That creates that safe space where you know you're not doing stuff that's non-consensual. And that's very important in a lot of relationships too. And we don't realize this even comes down to conversations, Precious. You know how many times, if you really think about it, how many times people come up to you, or they call you on the phone and they go right into it with a topic. You be like, hold on, I didn't give you consent to talk
Hold on.
about all that. Like, hold on. Like, you
Yes,
you need to ask for consent before you're triggering me right now. And that's why
right.
sometimes when you're online on social media, if it's something really bad, it'll say trigger warning. Like, I remember one time my homeboy sent me some stuff years ago, and he sent me a clip. And this was back in the day, like the MySpace days, but he wasn't using MySpace. I'm just giving you an example how
Right.
it was. He sent me a text message. He sent me a text message. I clicked on the link that he got, and it was a woman who got like half her face blown off. And I think
Jesus.
on like a talk show or something, but her boyfriend or her significant other had shot her in the face and she survived. I texted him. I said, "Hey man, don't be sending me stuff like that, bro. I didn't consent to that." Oh yeah, my bad. Da, 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 da. And I had another homeboy who used to send me porn. Like, it's like both extremes. Like,
That's the straight.
I
It's.
on one
I
end,
think it's very awkward to send those type of
yeah,
things when you're not, when you know, when you and that person don't have that sort of level, that brain, that same brain wavelength to be doing that for. Like some people can't. Like for instance, this gonna sound a little morbid. I don't have an issue seeing people in coffins. In all realness, I don't have a problem, but a lot of people do.
hmm
So there are a lot of people that know. That's why I see a lot of people. I don't want to see people in their coffins and stuff like that. But our family, we're okay with it. I don't know. We have an interesting way with death that, like, we still have pictures of our loved one in coffins sitting on our phone. But that's just how we share our photo with our loved ones. Especially people who could have made it to the funeral. That's what we do. But for a lot of people, that's very, very triggering for.
yeah,
But for us, it feels nothing. So that's why when people, especially with my grandma that passed away in 2019, they'd be like, you have any pictures? I said, yes, but I do have pictures, but what kind of pictures you're looking for? Because some may be a little triggering. You may not feel comfortable seeing her in that.
hmm
Although she didn't look bad, she looked beautiful, but some people don't want to see that. So I'm like, what kind of pictures you're looking for before I send these to you, or before I
right,
show them to you? So like my one of my coworkers, she was a I forgot what they call. She worked for she's a technician for like X-ray technician of the bones, and she kind of said like there was a guy who had a bad motorcycle that his legs were torn off. Like, and she asked, she asked for my consent before she showed it to me. She's like, do you have a strong gut, and do you want? I'm giving consent. Do you want to show it to me? I said yes. I'm perfectly fine. I
yeah,
did see the picture. It was very, very grotesque. Like, you will think it's a dummy body, but it wasn't. It was a human body. But I didn't feel no kind of way because
mm,
I can stomach things a little differently than a lot of people. But yeah, I think you need to. I think what I said, you need to comb out through them traumas,
yeah. That's good
and
advice. I'm gonna
that's
go
my
back
point.
and I'm gonna listen to this when I'm this podcast, and I'm gonna take some notes because we definitely got to have a part two. And I would love to bring Bobby back on here and have a conversation with him and any other guests. If you want to be on C Talk, make sure you inbox me. You can inbox Precious also. We on Facebook, we on YouTube. Whatever platform you looking at us right now, inbox us if you want to be on C Talk. I'll get back to you. You can email me at logicamen@gmail.com. If you want to donate to tonight's show, you know what I'm saying? Donate to me on Cash App at $logicamen, Venmo at, logicamen. I'm gonna put Precious information in the comments if she wants to be donated to and whatnot. But if you want to be on C Talk, or if you got topics you want us to cover, man, we back at this, man. Make sure you get with us. So it's C Talk. Thank you, Precious. This was an awesome show. Thank you
It
for
was. We lasted a good hour, so I think we did good. We did an
joining.
hour.
Hey, man, time flies when you teaching and learning.
You're right. You're very right.
All right.
Yes, I hope join us next time. Join us next time.